Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I was talking to a friend a few days ago, catching up because COVID-19 has kept us apart for quite a long time. And she mentioned that in Ramadan, she feels an immense feeling of guilt. In fact, even before the month begins, she's already feeling dread because she set up these expectations of herself of how much she should be reciting Quran, how much she should be praying, and she feels already like she's not going to be able to live up to those expectations. She's not going to be able to please God. And as the days of Ramadan roll by, she realizes that she's not doing very well. She starts to feel terrible about herself. By the time Eid rolls around, she feels like a failure, and it's already too late to do something about it. Now, I've heard iterations of this same feeling, this sentiment, time and again, but this time it really struck me. Because I have to admit that I felt this way before, as if I was somehow insufficient in the sight of God during Ramadan. And it occurred to me that we've somehow become conditioned to feel this way during Ramadan, to feel that if we love God enough, if we are devout enough as individuals, then we must always feel insufficient, as if we can't measure up to what God expects of us. And that's inspired my talk today. If you're worried that you haven't done enough this Ramadan, if it's making you feel anxious and guilty, I have a message for you. Banish guilt this Ramadan. Guilt will suck the joy out of you. It will weigh you down. It will make you approach God feeling unworthy, feeling bad about yourself. And then you will resent God and forget that we have been blessed with a beautiful religion, a way of life that is intended to foster completeness, wholeness, and a sense of peace and serenity within. We are still in the month of Ramadan. It is a blessed month, a time of God's forgiveness and God's mercy. We should embrace Ramadan. I want to share with you today 7 tips to banish guilt this Ramadan. First, we must continually make sincere intentions. Know that God rewards us based on our intentions, so that even if we don't end up achieving what we set out to achieve, we will still be rewarded for those actions. Second, enlarge your understanding of what worship is. Sometimes we think if we're serving others, if we're doing our job, if we are taking care of children at home, that somehow this is taking us away from the worship that we should be engaging in. But we should realize that when we are doing those things, we are still engaging in worship, a different form of worship. And so we should engage in these different acts of worship with the intention to please God and with the aim of doing them with excellence. Third, all good is rewarded by God. So sometimes we tend to dismiss the little things that we do. For example, praying to God in the little moments, like when we're washing the dishes, for example, or asking God for forgiveness, praising God, thinking about God, just reflecting on God. We should never underestimate the value of the little things that we do and the worth that they might have in the sight of God, especially if we're doing them continuously throughout the day. Fourth, have reasonable expectations that are meaningful for you. Don't get trapped trying to complete a list of deeds. If you are racing and competing with yourself and other people to try and do certain things, for example, reading the Quran from cover to cover, or performing a certain set of night prayers every night, and you find yourself empty within, then you have to ask yourselves, what are you trying to achieve by doing this? Are you trying to achieve God's pleasure? Are you trying to draw closer to Allah? Or is there some other thing that you're trying to achieve? And maybe there's something else that you could be doing that is more meaningful for you. And that's why I talk about setting meaningful expectations. So for example, if you are reciting a few verses of the Quran every day and trying to ponder on the meaning of those verses and trying to apply those verses in your life, that might have more value to you than performing some other deeds. Fifth, adjust your understanding of God. Know that nothing we do can compare to God's mercy. If you're thinking about God as a taskmaster, know that your understanding is doing an injustice to God. God knows our personal limits. God understands the efforts we are making, and God knows our human weaknesses and limitations. God doesn't want us to live with a feeling of guilt. God wants us to continually turn back to Him, to seek forgiveness, to seek His help, to seek a path forward, one that makes us feel complete and whole and good. Sixth, change your expectations of your responsibilities to God. It is the month of Ramadan, so we should strive as much as possible to serve God and to worship God, because that is how we grow spiritually and become closer to God. At the same time, we need to know our limits so that we do not exceed them. Recognize the blessings that God has given us, all of the favors that God has bestowed upon us with very little effort on our part. God, through His infinite mercy, has given us all this and doesn't require us to compete or struggle or vie for them. 7, know that this isn't the end. In fact, it may be a new beginning. Ramadan will end, yes, but that doesn't mean that our deeds end. Every day is a new opportunity to do good. So don't let the past burden you. Don't let what you haven't achieved and what you haven't done bring you down, but be hopeful and look forward always. I pray that you have a wonderful rest of the month, guilt-free. May we draw closer to God. May we gain God's pleasure always, and may the mercy and forgiveness and love of God envelope us always. I'm Safiyyah Ally for Let the Quran Speak.